Okay. Ein chayfrin kuchen ukvaris b'mayed. We may not dig. Kuchen they translate as burial niches, and kvaris they translate as tombs. Now, before we explain the two types of graves we're talking about here, the point here is that, as we said before, on Chalamayid we're allowed to do what's called tzarchei tzibur, things that are communal needs. We may do on Chalamayid. Now, in this case, they are digging these graves not because somebody died and needs a plot, needs somewhere to be buried. You do it in advance. They dig these graves in advance for when they're going to be needed. So it's not a need for the yontif, it's not a need for the day, but it's a communal need. So Mishna says you can't do that. You cannot dig these kinds of burial spaces on Chalamayid. Again, such a thing requires a lot of effort, understandably, and because it takes a lot of effort, even though it's a public need, you still can't do it on Chalamayid. Now, these two types of burial plots, they call it kuchen ukvaris. Kuchen they translate as burial niches, graves in an underground cemetery. They hear in the notes they write it was customary in those days to bury the dead in underground burial sites, as we call them, catacombs. They would dig out a large cave-like space under the ground and make cavities in the walls, each one large enough to hold a body.
Vertical.
Yes. So like this.
Horizontal.
Yeah, horizontal. Okay. Now, the other one, kvaris, they call that tombs, which are above ground burial chambers, which doesn't mean it's not like it's impossible to bury somebody in a kosher way above ground. You know, you can have a cave above ground and dig out and carve out spaces in the wall and bury people like that. So what is an underground? What is above ground? Whatever case it is, even though it's a public need, nonetheless, because it requires great effort, and again, it's not needed for the yontif itself, but rather you're trying to do in advance, but it's a communal need, you cannot do it because it takes a lot of effort. However, you can adjust the size of an existing burial niche during Chalamayid. Why? Because that doesn't require great effort. So therefore, if you need to adjust it, now, I don't know, well, why are you adjusting it? Are you adjusting it in advance? It sounds like, again, it's a question of doing something in advance, but since it doesn't require a lot of effort, then you'd be able to do it. Okay, so that's the first part of the Mishnah. The next part of the Mishnah is next part of the Mishnah reads, we may make a wash pond, which is a place to wash laundry during Chalamayid, because it will be used to wash clothes that will be worn on the festival, does not require great effort. So here again, you're trying to make something and you need it for yontif. Mm-hmm. Now, although typically you cannot launder your clothes in Chalamayid, but we will learn cases where you are allowed to launder your clothes on Chalamayid for Chalamayid or for yontif. And in that case, you'll need to make this pool. But we say that you can make the pool because and the way they explain it here is because it doesn't take a lot of effort to make. Now, and you can make a coffin together where the dead body lies in a courtyard. So what's happening is like this. You need to saw, you have raw lumber and you need to saw boards from that raw lumber for the coffin. So we say like this. And we're talking about you need it for, if you're making a coffin, that means that somebody passed away. So it's an immediate need. And we're saying that this immediate need can be done, but only if it's done im hameis b'chatzer, if it's done in a courtyard where the dead body is lying. And the reason for that is because if you were to be doing it in a different courtyard where the body's not there, people are going to think that you're sawing wood for some other reason. And people would suspect you're doing something wrong. But once it's talking about that you're doing it together with where the mace is lying, where the person passed away is lying, then that will make it be known enough that it can be seen enough that what it's being done for. So that's the first opinion. Now, okay. Rabbi Yehuda forbids this. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to have ready-made boards. You have to already made boards. And why Ella Imkain Yeshimay Nasarim. Rabbi Yehuda forbids doing anything with this to make this coffin unless you have already boards with it. You can't saw the boards from the raw wood. That Rabbi Yehuda considers great effort, and therefore it would not be permitted to do. Furthermore, as I bring down here from Tosfos Yantif, it's now so hard to find boards that have already been sewn. Okay, so therefore, whichever way you want to look at it, either of course it takes a lot of effort, or because it can easily be found without having to do this at all. Rabbi Yehuda forbids, but the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, and we say the halacha is that you'd be able to saw the boards, as the Mishna says, if it's in the same place where the person who passed away is. Now, in the Bartanura, it says something very interesting, that with this whole halacha about being concerned that if you don't do it in the same courtyard, people are going to suspect you of doing it for some other reason. He calls it Elaba Adam She'ena Meforsim. About Adam Meforsim, Oisim Loi Amrin Mafila B'Shuk. If people know, meaning the point is like this: there were people who died and nobody really knew about it. Mm-hmm. So if the dead body's not there and you're going ahead and you're sawing wood, people suspect you're doing it for some other reason. But let's say everybody heard this is a famous person, a well-known person. He passed away. Everybody knows about it. Then it doesn't make it. You can saw the wood anywhere you want, even in the marketplace. The Bartanura says, even B'Shuk. Because people are going to know. They're going to assume that's what it's for. Says Bartanura, misbar, and for us that there's few of us, everybody's considered well known. So what exactly those circumstances are, but he says when there's so few of us, then when somebody passes away, everybody knows about it, and therefore it's not an issue. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. So